And next we have Danny Robertson. You'd like to come up?
Hello everyone, my name's Danny. I'm an assistant producer in the factual television industry, and I used to be a member of AirTV, and I brought this to prove that I was. This side is, the nice side. This is the side I washed and no longer says station manager on it, so sadly there's no evidence. So I was at Stirling University 14 years ago, where I first came and I was incredibly lonely. I remember my first semester really struggling to sort of, make friends, and I did join a filmmaking society called AirTV, but I didn't quite get the full experience that I wanted from it. And then I went away for the winter break and came back and said, no, I really need to put an effort in, I really need to sort of try, and AirTV reached out to me with an open hand, and ever since then I've made friends and colleagues that have been in the industry and have also remained my friends for years. And so in my fourth year, I then went into being the station manager at the time. So we had a couple of things that we implemented in the year that I was there. Sorry, I'm getting my notes here. We did things like, one thing I wanted to do was foster a really inclusive and sort of welcoming environment, and basically attract new members as well in the turn of doing so. And do things like we bought an edit PC. We'd had Premiere Pro, but we didn't have Avid, so we bought an Avid computer so that people could get training on 2 different PCs. We also had Final Cut, but no one uses that anymore. But at the time, it was the rage. We did other things like started scene stealers, lock-ins, and 48-hour projects, so that people could come in and get a full experience very quickly of understanding how to make films and stuff. We also did things like drama groups, where basically new members, would be split up into groups of, 5, where they would all get a chance to basically rotate around. Someone would do camera, some would direct, some would write, someone would edit. So everyone got an opportunity to learn and basically, more importantly, make mistakes. Because I think that's kind of the good part of what AirTV was about, is that it's a chance to be, experimentative and really make some really awful films, and then eventually make some really good films that you love and always look back and cherish. We also did community outreach, which was where we reached out to companies in Stirling, like Creative Stirling, the Jailhouse, and a club night called Filth, where we would basically give our members an opportunity to gain experience, film these projects with them, but at the end of it, the companies would agree to give them a credit. So you were leaving university with good credits from legitimate companies, which you could then use to get hired for your proper projects after. For this, we won some great awards at the time. We won Most Active Society. We won, I think, Best Event for what was then the Oscars, but was now renamed the ACLAs, which I think is a lot better, less cringe. And I was really humbled by the membership, because they voted and wrote in testimonials, which allowed me to win Best President that year. And I've worked on a lot of award-winning shows since then and had the opportunity to work on some great shows, but that's genuinely something I really look back towards as something that really meant a lot to me for all the hard work and the community that we'd fostered in AirTV at that time. So I wanted to talk about how I got into my first position, which was as an office runner. So I first quickly moved down to London, where I worked at one of the leading visual effects companies called MPC. We were working on films like Jungle Book, Guardians of the Galaxy, and the big one I worked on was Ridley Scott's The Martian. So I got to work on some amazing movies, but I had to start from very humble beginnings, basically shoveling shit as a job there. So my first role was this office runner. How I got that position was what the marketing officer at the union was someone I'd made good friends with in the position of station manager, and in doing so, she had a friend who worked down at this company who came up, and I was absolutely trying to impress her and tell her all the things that I was great, and I thought her job was really cool. And then that, in time, when I was looking for my first job, I reached out to her, she reached out to the talent manager down there, and that's how I got my interview. And 2 weeks later, I had to move down to London. That job was basically an overpaid janitor. Actually, I wouldn't say overpaid, that'd be ridiculous. A paid janitor, where you're basically doing the 6 a.m. shift, taking rubbish out of bins, and getting teas and coffees, filling up kitchens, and then the later shift, getting dinners for people in the evening. So not as glamorous as it seems when you first expect your first job to be, but I was in the movies, so that was really good. And so I worked there for about 6 months and then got promoted to a production assistant, where I was, working with some really cool directors like Jon Favreau, Kenneth Branagh, and one of my favourites, Ridley Scott. And that whole period was basically just, taking notes during daily sessions for visual effects shots, relaying that to the artists, and then doing lots of sending shots and lots of technical terms I've now actually forgotten, but yeah, a bunch of stuff like that. But unfortunately, this was my sort of first introduction to what freelancing is, and when my contract came to an end, I didn't have anything else lined up. London's an expensive place, so unfortunately I couldn't stay. So I moved back up to Glasgow, where I worked with Raise the Roof Productions as their office runner. Again, a lot of office admin, again, teas and coffees, but it's also helping out with equipment, and then actually going out on location, helping with lenses, sound equipment, all skills I picked up whilst I was in AirTV, things that I could help out with people at. Your job when I was doing that is to make people's lives easier. Everyone above you has so much on their plate that they can't think of, and to have someone who's there that can either be on hand to anticipate what they're wanting or can help out can be a big help. So I worked at that for about 1.5 years. I unfortunately wasn't getting promoted there as I wanted to, so I went to their main competitor and worked as a development researcher. Development is basically where you come up with ideas for TV shows. Sometimes, depending on the company you're at, you'll be working with the talent that you have, finding an idea that works with what they like or are known for, and then developing a show around that, so it's something that they're quite interested in. We did this for a number of artists, and my first show that I got commissioned was Scotland's Home of the Year. So it's this show about sort of architecture, interior design, and lifestyle, and basically filming around beautiful houses around Scotland. And my first job was to find the judges that would be in this role. So it was the first time I finally felt like creatively fulfilled in my role, where I finally, I cast someone on that show, and that felt amazing. I felt like I've had a significant push on that. I know that show's been going for 7 series, so it's a show I feel really proud of that I was there at its inception to then put forward. I've done other roles as a researcher where you've done sort of, again, casting, or you're helping out in studio, or you're even doing some shooting. But my most recent stuff is working as an assistant producer, where I've worked with a lot of talent, sort of like Susan Calman, Edith Bowman, Nish Kumar, a couple of people like that. And the key thing there is to sort of, remember your briefs, learn what the subject you're doing is, and then make that knowledgeable, transferable to them, so that they in turn then trust you. I'm aware I'm going on a bit, so I think that's kind of like the idea of where my career's gone. I wanted to give you guys some general bits of advice that would have really helped me when I was first going into the film and television industry, and afterwards, some of these I might get covered in the Q&A part of this as well, but I thought it was just things that I wish I knew when I started. So things that I thought were very good were, well, not very good, things that you should know about the industry at the moment is we're currently in a recession. So what that means is there are, I think 75% of freelancers are currently out of work. So it's a bit of a daunting time to be going into television, which is a really hopeful thing to tell you guys as you're graduating. But that will hopefully only be lasting for no more than a year. We basically made too much just after COVID, and then that's meant they've got a backlog of all these programs that they've not aired yet. I think I've still got like 2 shows that I've got credits on that I've still not seen the light of day yet, but they will hopefully come out soon. So what is freelancing? Freelancing is basically where you go contract to contract, where you either do a day, 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months. You will work at a company for that set period of time. Sometimes they keep you on if there's the work to be going around, or sometimes you will go to another company to sort of fill that spot. And it's a tricky thing when you're starting out to keep that going and keep yourself employed with that. So I think some key things for me that I wish I'd known was creating a pot of money before you start. Ideally something that's about 6 to 2 months worth so that you can cushion yourself for when you don't have work. Things as well as like rates. It's hard to know when you're starting out, like how much should you charge for what you are as a runner. There's plenty of scorecards and rate cards that BEC to, which is the television union, who sort of tell you what you should be at. It doesn't always reflect that, but I'm more than happy to chat to you guys if you're feeling awkward and want to know how you approach that with someone, if you've been hired. Other things as well is because you work freelance, there's not really a pension, so I would encourage you to get one as soon as you start in your career, because that might not seem really important now, but certainly when you get to my age, at the ripe old age of 32, you start worrying about your future a bit and start going, I wish I'd started a pension maybe when I was 21 and just finished that. So things like that, and the key things I think to come away from this is that you need to be a people person, no matter what you're doing in factual. Your whole role is speaking to people, convincing them to let them onto their property to film stuff, to convince them to be on a show when it's not necessarily in their best interest. So learning those skills, those communication skills, you actually pick up from doing stuff like waiting tables and speaking to people. That's the best way to sort of pick it up. And I think the community that AirTV fostered when I was here was something that really helped encourage and push those skills forward. What else? I could speak on, but how much time do I have? Am I really going overboard on this, or?
I think we're good for time at the moment.
Fair. No worries. Well, listen, I'll say a couple more bits and then I'll let someone else have a time. How do you get hired in the first place if you're looking for a job in factual television? Positions are mostly advertised on Facebook, and so there's groups like the TV Talent Scotland page, where people will post runner positions, or junior researcher positions, or junior or production assistant positions, depending on which line you want to go. If you want to go editorial or production, that's the sort of place you'll look for those type of jobs. It's also like TV runner groups on Facebook. There's also Talent Manager, which is a page where you basically put all it's like LinkedIn, but specifically for TV and film. The best way to do it is most companies have talent managers who you will go along, introduce yourself to, have a coffee with them, explain what you want to do as part of your career, where you'd like to go, and how they can necessarily help you to get on with that part. Also, production managers, as you work, you will meet people in the industry. It's always good to keep some of their details on hand in a GDPR safe way, but mostly just building relationships with people that you're on set with. I think one thing that was maybe a bit of a pitfall for me when I first moved out of the industry was perhaps whenever I was sort of speaking with production managers, I would tell them I wanted to be a director, I wanted to do all these things, and I think it's better to learn. It's better to build a relationship before you immediately start telling them how much you want to do and your ambitions. I think it's better to ask them questions and listen first, and then build that relationship when they in turn ask you that. And I suppose things for also just keeping a job when you meet people. Oh no, I said that line. Ignore that. Yes, wear appropriate clothing. Studio blacks is a term. It just means you wear black jeans, black shoes, black t-shirts, and or just black everything, so that you're not seen in the back of camera or you're not seen on light sets. So wearing blacks is your uniform basically. So I'd recommend buying black everything. Not because you're a goth, just because it's good. Yeah, I think because we're running short of time, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but I think the key things are to stay hungry. You're at a period in your life where you are meeting your colleagues, you're meeting your friends, which will eventually become your colleagues further down the line. Ian and I, and Sarah, and Rory, who I've not seen in years, but we've all worked together throughout the years post AirTV, and the amount of members that we still get that come through from AirTV that are either runners or researchers really fills us with a lot of joy. So I think to know that what we started is still continuing and that you guys are still fostering that sort of creative environment that people get the chance to learn in and, you know, build their craft, I think is brilliant. So yeah, if you have any questions for us afterwards, please come up and chat to us. We're happy to give any CV advice, cover letter advice, or just any questions you've got. But otherwise, thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you.